The establishment of both political parties are celebrating today. Look at this new development we have. U.S. preparing charges against Julian Assange. By the way, Julian Assange isn't American and has never stepped foot in America, so I don't even know what that means, and I don't even know how that works. How are you going to bring up charges against somebody who's not American and who's never stepped foot in America? Weird. So here's what they say. The United States is preparing charges against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, CNN reported Thursday. U.S. officials familiar with the matter told CNN that prosecutors have found a way to move forward after struggling to determine whether the First Amendment protected Assange from prosecution. The Justice Department's investigation of WikiLeaks can be traced back to 2010, after thousands of U.S. government files stolen by former Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning appeared on the website. According to CNN, former President Obama's Justice Department decided not to pursue charges against Assange because other mainstream publications also decided to publish the documents. So what we have here is an existential threat to the First Amendment. Now, it's already well established that most of the Constitution at this point is just ignored. For example, the NSA with their massive spying program basically leaves the Fourth Amendment null and void, the Fourth Amendment being protection from unreasonable search and seizure. And of course, the government has to describe the specific place or thing to be searched, and you need to get an individual warrant for each time the government wants to look for something. That's all pretty much gone at this point, so the NSA has ruined that. Bush and Cheney, and then it was continued under Obama. There was the destruction of habeas corpus and due process. Obviously, you don't have a protection from cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, we did torture, for example. We also have the death penalty, which would seem to me to be by definition cruel, but also unusual because the majority of nations in the world don't even have the death penalty. So the Constitution is just like, whatever's inconvenient, ignore it. Well, the First Amendment was one of them that, for the most part, although there are exceptions, but for the most part, it's been protected in the sense that we live in a uniquely free country when it comes to speech. And a good example of that is, remember the Skokie case? The Supreme Court basically ruled that you can even have hate groups like neo-Nazis or the KKK. If they're going to peacefully march, they're allowed to march through, for example, a predominantly Jewish town. And that's hailed from people who actually understand civil liberties as kind of like the go-to example of, no, this is how principled we are when it comes to free speech. You're even allowed to basically do hate speech. The only thing you're not allowed to do are libel, slander, and direct threats of violence. There's just very, very few exceptions to the First Amendment. And obviously, part of the First Amendment, not only free speech and free expression, but freedom of the press. And the Obama administration, even though they've, wrongly cracked down on whistleblowers, they weren't able to go after Julian Assange because, as they laid out here, in order to do that, it would mean, hey, we have to go after virtually every media outlet that published stuff from WikiLeaks, which basically became all of them. Virtually all of them. You had WikiLeaks, got the documents that were leaked by Chelsea Manning, they ran with the documents, and then other news outlets reported on them. Yeah, that's what a free press is. So they wanted to go after WikiLeaks, but they're like, what are we going to do? We're going to go after the New York Times, we're going to go after the Washington Post, we're going to go after the entire media apparatus in the United States of America? That's crazy. We can't do that. Well, now, the Trump administration has been working overtime to try to figure out, well, no, fuck it, let's go after WikiLeaks. We just got to figure out a way to do it. Now, many people are pointing out, this is such a bad precedent because then what you're doing is you're opening the door to go after any outlet you want. It could be CNN, it could be, whatever, MSNBC, it could be the New York Times, it could be the Washington Post, it could be the Wall Street Journal, it could be right-wing outlets, whatever, it doesn't matter. Once you open this door, you can have the government go after the media for publishing things that they say you're not allowed to publish. But to me, not only is that a big aspect of it and a scary part of it, But also just the fact that they're going after WikiLeaks. It's not like, hey, WikiLeaks is bad, so we get it. Go after them. But, don't go after the other outlets. No, you shouldn't even be going after WikiLeaks. So think about what we learned from Chelsea Manning and what we learned in those particular leaks. For example, we found out that the U.S. military in Iraq, we bombed civilians, and it was actually media people. Somebody was holding a camera, and a bunch of idiots in our military said, "Is that a weapon? I don't know, but it's close enough." And so they murdered people from the media. Then guess what? They circled around. The first responders showed up, murdered the first responders too, all the while laughing about it, giggling about it. I think we got bad people, but who knows if they're really bad people, but it doesn't really matter anyway, right? Because we're in Iraq and they're brown and on the ground, so whatever. So we learned that from Chelsea Manning, and guess what? The response from virtually everybody in the establishment was, "How dare you release this information? You're harming national security." Harming national security? Hold on now. You just declared that that was top secret or classified because it was embarrassing for how you do business, for how the government functions. Because you like to say, oh my God, we're a beacon of freedom and democracy and hope. But yeah, it's okay. Every once in a while we blow journalists to smithereens and then we circle around and kill the first responders. So all it was it made you look bad. So that's why you wanted to hide it from the public. You're not allowed to do that. So what Chelsea Manning did was the most patriotic thing, was the most in line with our Constitution, and she was trying to uphold the law, but they flip it and say, no, she's violating the law, so everybody be mad at her. So guess what? Chelsea Manning, as everybody knows, spent a tremendous amount of time in prison. How much time did the murderers spend in prison? Not a single day. The people who killed those innocent people, no consequences whatsoever, never even considered. But Chelsea Manning, who leaked the video of murderers killing innocent people, or I should say terrorists because they're killing for a political reason, she, of course, had to spend a lot of time in jail, a lot of time in prison. So think about that, man. You have WikiLeaks that released information about how our government is committing war crimes, and that's why our government is now going after them. That almost strikes me like an authoritarian state. That almost strikes me like something a dictatorship would do. You have embarrassed the regime, and now we're going to come after you ruthlessly. Okay, but that's not allowed. That's the whole point of the Constitution. That's the whole point of the First Amendment. We're supposed to have a free press so that they keep the people in power in check. In other words, WikiLeaks is doing what every outlet is supposed to do. But of course, what's going to happen now? Well, the establishment of both parties is going to be happy about this because, okay, the right-wingers hate WikiLeaks because of what we learned about Chelsea Manning. WikiLeaks released embarrassing information under the Bush administration that exposed the Bush administration for being bad. So that's when the Republicans were like, oh, WikiLeaks, terrible, a horrific organization. I mean, they're like spies or something, and they're working with the enemy and blah, blah, all made up nonsense. And at that time, Democrats supported WikiLeaks because WikiLeaks was releasing information on the Bush administration. So of course, for sheerly partisan reasons, they're like, yeah, WikiLeaks is great. Well, guess what? In recent times, WikiLeaks, of course, released the DNC emails, which showed how corrupt the DNC was and how there was collusion with the media and how they tipped the scales against Bernie Sanders, showed the way the sausage is really made. So as a result of that, what happened? Now, all of a sudden, all those Democrats that loved WikiLeaks, now they hate WikiLeaks. And they go, yeah, now how dare you do leaks? It's so wrong to do leaks, even though we loved leaks under the Bush administration. Now we hate leaks because you're leaking on our queen, Hillary Clinton. And so, but Donald Trump was on the campaign trail saying, oh, literally, I love WikiLeaks was something he said. We got WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks. He said this. And then now, because guess what? It's not Donald Trump in control. It's the establishment that's controlling his every move. The neocon deep state is controlling him. So what now? His administration is going after WikiLeaks. Hypocrite in chief. Donald Trump is, he will do a 180 on any issue. Any issue. And this is a perfect example. He's saying, I love WikiLeaks. Now he's like, yeah, let's prosecute them. The fuck is that about? Because he has no moral core. He doesn't care. So, some people were saying, speculating, including myself, hey, maybe he'll pardon Assange for what Assange did in releasing the DNC emails. Not only no pardon, they're going further than Obama went, and they're going to bring up charges. So this is terrible, man. Look, here's the main point. You guys have to put partisan politics aside. You have to. Because when you look at this through the lens of partisanship, what's going to happen is there's going to be times when you despise WikiLeaks with every fiber of your being. There's going to be times when you love WikiLeaks with every fiber of your being. Just be consistent and understand their main mission is transparency. Their main mission is to hold government accountable. So it doesn't matter if it's a Republican president or a Democratic president. What they want to do is they want to have transparency for the powerful. So you see what your government is doing with your money in your name, or you see what powerful people are doing behind the scenes, things that are corrupt, things that, amount to collusion with the media, so on and so forth. So you should support them across the board. I know we support WikiLeaks across the board. We support them because they're doing what journalists are actually supposed to do by releasing information on the powerful. But also, if there were to be a crackdown on WikiLeaks, yes, you're talking about such a horrific precedent that no news organization is safe. I mean, again, look at Edward Snowden. Mike Pompeo, who's now the CIA head, says he wants Snowden executed. That's what he said. He wants Snowden executed. And Edward Snowden is a guy who revealed the fact that the NSA is spying on all of us. So it's the NSA that's violating the Constitution, taking away your Fourth Amendment rights, but they flip it and say, oh my goodness, Edward Snowden is breaking the law, and he's doing something illegal, so he's the problem. No, he's exposing the fact that you're doing something illegal. In fact, you're doing something unconstitutional. The government is. But the powers that be have decided we're going to basically exile you. We need to stand up for civil liberties across the board. We need to stand up for rights across the board. And right now, we have a system where those rights are already barely there to begin with, because so many of them have been eroded since the Patriot Act and the War on Terror. But now it's getting even worse, where press freedoms are under attack.